making. They're very homely, some of them, but they'll be very helpful. And number one is keep cool when other people get hot.
When it comes to seriously good mayonnaise, it has to be Heinz. Try the new Heinz mayo flavors. In store now.
What makes your teeth unique is what makes them hard to clean. A warm brush head makes cleaning even harder, leaving more bacterial plaque behind. But a new Oral-B brush head fully adapts to the hard-to-reach places between teeth, boosting cleaning power back to 100%. So check, change, and get back to your perfect clean with Oral-B. Brush head fully adapts to the hard-to-reach places between teeth, boosting cleaning power back to 100%. So check, change.
Confidence is not something you are born with. It is not handed down by your family or granted by your environment. It is forged. It is built through relentless commitment, brutal honesty, and an unwavering belief that you have what it takes. You see, most people think confidence is a feeling, something that just appears when life goes right. But that's where they're wrong. Confidence is not a feeling. It is a decision to act despite the fear, to move forward when doubts surround you, to take a step even when your legs feel weak. Napoleon Hill once said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. But here's the thing most people miss. Belief doesn't just come. It is built like a fortress, brick by brick, through every small victory, every disciplined habit, every moment you refuse to quit. Confidence is not about standing tall when everyone applauds. It's about standing firm when no one believes. When the world doubts you, when your own mind whispers defeat, you look in the mirror and declare, I am more than this. I will rise. I will build. Think of Thomas Edison, the man who saw the light long before the world could see it. He didn't invent the light bulb in one stroke of genius. He failed thousands of times. But his confidence was unbreakable, not because he knew the way, but because he refused to let the failures define him. That's the truth. No one tells you. Confidence is not perfection. It's not the absence of mistakes. It's the mastery of rising back up time and time again, no matter how many times life tries to knock you down. It's the relentless belief that your dreams are worth fighting for, that your potential is greater than your fear, that you are capable of more than what your past has led you to believe. The world doesn't reward the most talented. It rewards the most resilient, the ones who keep pushing, keep striving, keep building their own unbreakable spirit day after day, despite the noise, despite the odds. Because real confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the whisper that says, keep going. It's the resolve that says, I am enough. It's the decision to act even when you don't feel ready. So, where does your confidence come from? It doesn't come from luck. It doesn't come from someone else's approval. It comes from proving to yourself over and over that you have the courage to face the day, to stand your ground, to own your journey. If you want unbreakable confidence, stop waiting for the world to give it to you. Start building it from within. Choose it, train it, own it, and never let anyone or anything take it away from you. You have to understand something crucial. Confidence is not a one-time decision. It's not a moment of inspiration that magically changes your life. It's a habit forged in the fire of repetition and strengthened through relentless practice. Think of a champion. Do they wake up every morning feeling unstoppable? No. They wake up just like you, tired, uncertain, questioning. But here's the difference. They act anyway. They push through the discomfort, not because they're fearless, but because they've trained their minds to see beyond the present struggle. When Muhammad Ali declared himself the greatest long before he was a champion, he wasn't just bragging. He was programming his mind, repeating the words until they became his reality. He wasn't waiting for the world to validate his work. He was claiming it, building it from the inside out. That's how confidence works. It's not waiting for proof. It's deciding you are capable and living as if you already are. Most people wait for a sign. They wait for someone to tell them they are worthy. But the ones who break through, they don't wait. They act as if the dream is already there, as if the victory is already won, as if the world is already on board, even when it's not. And that's the secret. Confidence is not built when things go right. It's built when everything goes wrong and you still choose to stand up and move forward. Imagine the Wright brothers looking at the skies, dreaming of flight. People laughed, called them fools, said humans weren't meant to fly. But they didn't let doubt ground them. They acted with confidence, not because they were certain, but because they believed that persistence would make it so. You see, confidence isn't something you feel. It's
Check 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Something you do. It's the action you take despite fear, the step you make without guarantees, the voice you use even when it shakes.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear.
Confidence must become like a muscle, not just any muscle, but one that's been broken, rebuilt, and strengthened through adversity. You don't train confidence on the days you feel good. You train it when you feel like hiding. You train it when you're terrified to fail. You train it when your mind tells you to quit, but your spirit whispers one more time. And here's the brutal truth. You will fail. You will fall short. You will face criticism, doubt, and even your own demons. But
I've got CatCaf in the chat. Why don't you give me a call? The number is actually in the title of the video. You can phone up, or if you want to send a voice note on WhatsApp, I will play the voice note. I'm not going to check it. I'm not going to censor you. This is freedom of speech, phone-in radio style, whatever you want to say. At the minute, we are listening to Napoleon Hill. Wonderful wisdom of Napoleon Hill. All about confidence. Are you a confident person? If you are confident, why don't you send me a voice note and I'll play it? And all the millions of listeners around the world can hear it.
Confidence isn't about avoiding failure. It's about becoming unbreakable through it. Every time you choose courage over comfort, every time you decide to keep going when quitting seems easier, you are casting a vote for the person you are becoming. The greatest minds, the strongest souls, the legends of every field, they weren't born confident. They built it step by step, choice by choice, until confidence became who they were, not just what they felt. So, when you doubt yourself, remember this. You are not defined by the voice of fear. You are defined by the steps you take in spite of it. You are not shaped by the opinions of those who don't believe in you. You are shaped by your ability to believe in yourself when no one else does. That's the real power. Not needing validation, not waiting for permission, but moving forward with the certainty that you are enough, just as you are, because you have decided to be. Confidence doesn't promise ease. It doesn't promise praise. It promises growth. And growth, real, unbreakable growth, comes from choosing the harder path, from doing what most won't, from standing up every time life knocks you down. And when you look back, not just at the victories, but at the struggles, the failures, the countless moments you wanted to give up, you'll see it clearly. Confidence wasn't a gift. It was your relentless choice to believe that no matter what, you would keep moving forward. And that choice, repeated enough, is how you build unbreakable confidence. Unbreakable confidence is not loud. It's not arrogance. It's not showing off or pretending to be invincible. It's quiet. It's humble. It's the calm knowing that whatever comes, you'll handle it. Think of the most powerful people in history. Did they boast about their power? Did they shout their greatness to the world? No. They moved with quiet assurance, knowing that real confidence doesn't need to scream, it just needs to act. Picture Martin Luther King Jr. standing before thousands, delivering a vision so profound it would shake the core of a nation. He didn't raise his voice to prove his worth. He spoke from the center of his soul because he knew his words carried the weight of truth. That's unbreakable confidence, a belief so strong that doubt doesn't stand a chance. Now think about your life. How often do you hold back because you think you're not ready? How many opportunities have you missed because you let fear control your choices? How many dreams have you set aside because someone else's opinion weighed more than your own belief? This is where most people get stuck. They think confidence is something they'll have one day when the timing is right, when they feel better, when the stars align, but that day never comes. Because confidence isn't waiting for perfection. It's choosing to act in the mess, in the doubt, in the uncertainty. The truth is, your brain doesn't know the difference between real success and imagined success. It responds to what you feed it. So if you keep telling yourself, I'm not enough, guess what? You'll act as if you aren't. But if you decide to say, I'm ready now, even when you're not, your brain begins to believe it and your actions follow. When Elon Musk started SpaceX, failure wasn't just possible, it was almost certain. Yet he didn't wait for guaranteed success. He acted with a vision so clear that no setback could shatter it. And even after rockets exploded, dreams crashed, and critics laughed, he kept pushing forward. That's the essence of confidence, to move forward with relentless belief, even when reality says no. You see, unbreakable confidence doesn't come from knowing the path. It comes from trusting yourself to walk it, even when it's uncertain, even when it's hard. It's not about never falling. It's about getting up so many times that falling no longer scares you.
I'm not sure if this might be AI generated because looking up Napoleon Hill, who was born in 1883, died 1970. Would he really have known about Elon Musk? I don't think so. So I think what we've actually stumbled upon here is a falsification of a speech by the great Napoleon Hill. Look, I'm only playing around with this. I thought it'd be a nice way to do sort of radio style listen along. He certainly does have a lot of great wisdom, but how would he, a man who died in 1970, know anything about Elon Musk? I've only just discovered who this guy is, Napoleon Hill. Apparently, he was born in a one-room cabin near the Appalachian town of Pound in Southwest Virginia, and his parents were James Monroe and Sarah Sylvania. Grandfather came to the US from England, so I guess he's English background. And at the age of 17, he graduated from high school and moved to Tazewell, Virginia. I don't know anything about this guy, but I found his talks online. I thought they sounded intriguing, so I thought I'd share them with you. But we might switch it up and listen to a different one. Learn to say no to what doesn't build you. Maybe this will be a good one.
They will tell you that success is about what you say yes to.
This is AI,
yes to
isn't it?
opportunity.
It's nonsense.
Yes to growth. Yes to the grind. But they forget to tell you this. Your life is shaped just as much, if not more, by what
Do
you
you know what?
refuse to entertain.
I might do a different speaker. In the chat, if you give me any examples of great wise theorists, I'm thinking like, who else have we got? I mean, I play Jordan Maxwell quite a lot on here anyway. You've probably heard enough of him. What about Monty Hall? Who was that? Was he any good? I'll have a listen to him. No, he was he's a TV presenter. Who am I thinking of? Someone else. Who were the great Alan Watts? How about Alan Watts? We give him a try. He's always good for good value. And he was a Christian who became a Buddhist, and then I don't know what he was in the end. Let's listen to Alan Watts on time.
Time is a very difficult thing to pin down. There's a famous saying of St. Augustine of Hippo that when he was asked, "What is time?" he said, "I know what it is, but when you ask me, I don't." And yet it seems absolutely fundamental to our life. Time is money, we say. I don't have enough time. Time flies. Time drags. And I think we should go into the question of what this is, because in our ordinary common sense, we think of time as a one-way motion from the past through the present and on into the future. And that carries along with it another impression, which is to say that life moves from the past to the future in such a way that what happens now and what will happen is always the result of what has happened in the past. In other words, we seem to be driven along. You know, once upon a time it was fashionable in psychology for people to speak of man's and animals' instincts. That we have, for example, an instinct for survival, an instinct to make love, and so on. But nowadays that word has become unfashionable, and psychologists tend instead to use the word drives, and to speak of the need for food as a drive, the need for survival or for sex as drives. And that's a very significant word because it's brought out, isn't it, by people who feel driven. Now, I must say personally, if I feel hungry, I don't feel driven. Also, if I feel lusty, I don't feel driven. Because I don't say, oh, excuse me, but I have to eat. Or excuse me, but I need to fulfill my sexual urges, my biological impulses. I say, hooray, I identify myself with my drives. They're me. And I don't take a passive attitude towards them and apologize for them. So the whole idea of our being driven is connected with the idea of causality, of life moving under the power of the past. And that is so ingrained in our common sense that it's very difficult to get rid of it. Because I want to turn the thing round completely the other way and say that the past is the result of the present. Let us suppose, just for the sake of example, that this universe started with a big bang, as some cosmologists believe. Now, when that bang happened, it was the present, wasn't it? And so the universe began in what we will call a now moment. Then it goes on doing its stuff. And always, when any event that we now call past came into being in the present and out of the present. That's one way of seeing it. But before we get further involved in this, I want to draw your attention to a fallacy in the very common sense idea of causality. That events are caused by previous events, from which they flow or result necessarily. To understand the fallacy of that idea, we have to begin by asking, what do you mean by an event? Let's take the event of a human being coming into the world. Now, when does that event begin? Does it occur at the moment of parturition, when the baby actually comes out of its mother? Or does the baby begin at the moment of conception? Or does the baby begin when it was an evil gleam in its father's eye? Or does a baby begin when the spermatozoa generated in the father, or the ovum in the mother? Or could you say a baby begins when its father is born or when its mother is born? All these things can be thought of as beginnings. But we decide, for purposes of legal registration, that a life begins at the moment of parturition. And that is a purely arbitrary decision. And it has validity only because we all agree about it. Let me show you the same phenomenon in the dimension of space instead of the dimension of time. Let's ask, how big is the sun? I'm going to define the sun as limited by the extent of its fire. That's one possible definition. But we could equally well define the sphere of the sun by the extent of its heat. We could also define the sphere of the sun by the extent of its light. And each of these would be reasonable choices, except that it's rather difficult to keep track of the extent of its light because we're inside it. And therefore, we have arbitrarily agreed to define the sun by the limit of its visible fire.
He's so good, isn't he, Alan Watts? What a wise man.
But you will see in all these, by these analogies, that how big a thing is, or how long an event is simply a matter of definition. Now, therefore, when by simple definition, for purposes of discussion, we have divided events into certain periods. We'll say the First World War began in 1914 and it ended in 1918. Now, actually, all those things which led up to the First World War started long before 1914, and the repercussions of that war have continued long beyond 1918. How are we to distinguish an event from its repercussions? So you will see that because we have divided events from one another in this arbitrary way, we do that, and then we sort of forget we did it. And then we have a puzzle. How do events lead to each other? Because, see, in reality, life moves along like water. And it's all connected as the source of the river is connected to the mouth and the ocean. And all the events or things going on are like whirlpools in the stream. Because you go there today and you see a whirlpool. You go there tomorrow and you see a whirlpool. But it isn't the same whirlpool because all the water is changing every second. What is happening is not really what we should call a whirlpool, but rather pooling. It is an activity, not a thing. And indeed, every so-called can be called an event. We call, say, a house, housing. We call a mat, matting. And we could equally call a cat. So we could say the catting sat on the matting. And we would thereby have a world in which there were no things but only events. Given flame is something we say is a flame on the candle. But it would be more correct to say there is a flaming on the candle because the flame is a stream of hot gas. Take another amusing example. We say fist. Fist is a noun. And fist looks like a thing, but suddenly what happens to the fist when I open my hand? See, I was fisting. Now I'm handing it to you. So every kind of so-called thing can be spoken of as an event, and because events flow into each other, the fisting flows into the handing, we cannot say exactly where one ends and the other begins. So therefore, if we remember that, we shall see that we do not need the idea of causality to explain how a prior event influences a following event, because it's like this. Supposing I'm looking through a narrow slit in a fence, and a snake goes by. I've never seen a snake before, and this is mysterious. And I see through the slit in the fence, first the snake's head. Then I see a long, trailing body, and then finally the tail. I say, well, that was interesting. Then the snake turns round and goes back. And again, I see first the head, and then after an interval, the tail. Now, if I call the head one event and the tail another, it will seem to me that the event head is the cause of the event tail. and the tail is the effect. But if I look at the whole snake, I will see a head-tailed snake, and it would be simply absurd to say that the head of the snake is the cause of the tail, as if the snake came into being, first the head and then the tail. The snake comes into being out of its egg as a head-tailed snake. And so in exactly the same way, all events are really one event. We're looking, when we talk about different events, we're looking at different sections or parts of one continuous happening. And therefore, the idea of separate events, which have to be linked by a mysterious process called cause and effect, is completely unnecessary. But having thought that way, we think of present events as being caused by past events. And therefore, we tend to regard ourselves as the puppets of the past, as driven along by something that is always behind us. Now, to overcome this impression, it's very simple. You begin again with an experiment which I suggested in a previous talk about meditation. Approach the world through your ears. If you shut your eyes and make contact with reality purely with your ears, I mean, it's kind of silly perhaps to shut your eyes when you're looking at television, but do it just for a moment. And you will realize that the sounds you are hearing are all coming out of silence.